Throughout ancient history, men would tell tales of giant monsters. They'd tell of bones and skeletons way larger than any animals they had ever seen. From Europe to China, these tales could be heard. But nobody really knew what to make of these magnificent findings, with many doubting that they were even real in the first place. However, one fateful day in the 17th century, a naturalist would stumble upon a bone that would revolutionize science and bring forth the birth of what we know today as the field of paleontology. This bone fragment belonged to a great reptile that once stalked the ancient Jurassic islands of Europe. But what kind of reptile was it? The answer to that question would lead scientists down a path of exploration and discovery that would change the world forever. This was Megalosaurus, the first terrible lizard. Paleontology as a scientific field wasn't officially established until the dawn of the 19th century, as fossils beforehand were more of a biology or geology-focused topic. In the late 17th century, in 1676, Sir Thomas Pennison discovered the end of a femur bone that was found in Bathonian-aged Middle Jurassic rocks of the Tainton Line Formation, located in Oxfordshire, England. The bone fragment was then sent to English naturalist Robert Plot, a professor of chemistry at the University of Oxford. It was originally published and described by Plot to belong to a Roman war elephant, then later as a biblical giant as it was further examined. This publication gave us the first ever illustration of a non-avian dinosaur fossil. Unfortunately for the bone itself, it has since been lost. Almost a century later, in the 1760s, the same bone was described, making it the first ever dinosaur bone to be given a scientific name. Described by English physician Richard Brooks, he gave the fossil the scientific name in Scrotum humanum, in reference to the fact that its appearance was similar to that of a pair of human testicles. Despite Brooks being aware of the fact that this fossil didn't represent an actual petrified pair of human testicles, the name was declared a nomen oblitum, or an invalid forgotten name, by paleontologist Lambert Beverly Halstead in 1970. This odd fossil would later be assigned to the real animal this bone belonged to in 1993. Moving on to the end of the 18th century, the number of fossils collected in England quickly grew in numbers. Among the fossils, according to a 1925 publication, was a lower jaw belonging to a giant reptile. This important find was discovered 40 feet deep underground in the 1790s, and comes from the same formation scrotum was found in. It was acquired in 1797 by Christopher Pegg, who brought the fossil to be on display at the Anatomy School of Christ Church College, Oxford. In 1815, several other bones from giant tetrapods were discovered in the same quarry once again, reported by English physician, chemist, and geologist John Kidd. The bones were later acquired by the professor of geology at the University of Oxford and dean of Christ Church, William Buckland, who also happened to study the lower jaw previously owned by Pegg. In 1818, French naturalist and zoologist Georges Cuvier visited Buckland in Oxford to analyze the bones himself, realizing that the bones actually belonged to a giant reptile-like animal. Buckland would later analyze the bones further to geologist and paleontologist William Conybeare, who in 1821 referred to them as the huge lizard. In 1822, Buckland and Collaborator would later provide names for the large fossil reptiles, known at the time with the first being Mosasaurus, discovered in the Netherlands. Collaborator would provide the name Megalosaurus for the English fossils, meaning large lizard or reptile in Greek. The same year Mosasaurus was described, a publication failed to occur for Megalosaurus. James Parkinson, a man with many talents who helped work on the description for both reptiles, would accidentally reveal Megalosaurus to the public by showing his illustration of its tooth, and stating that its size at the time believed to be 40 feet long and 8 feet high. Thankfully, the name Megalosaurus was only considered as a nomen nudum at the time. It wasn't until February 20th, 1824 that the full paper about the animal would officially be published, therefore making the scientific name valid. While not a lot of people thought of this publication's significance back then, it is a huge historical moment to the field of paleontology, as Megalosaurus is officially the first valid non-avian dinosaur to ever be described, despite the fact that the clade dinosaur wasn't even described until 1842. Like most genera described in the early 19th century, Megalosaurus was not given a specific name, as the genus name was the essential focus in its 1824 publication. German naturalist Ferdinand von Röntgen would give Megalosaurus the species name Megalosaurus coniberi, meaning Conibere's large lizard or reptile, which is now considered to be a nomen oblitum. A year later, English geologist and paleontologist Gideon Mantell included Megalosaurus in his geological survey of southern England and gave it the species name Megalosaurus bucklandii, meaning Buckland's large lizard or reptile, which was more widely accepted. Over the years, many other Megalosaurus species have been described, which all remained either dubious, synonymous, or informal as of now. By the time Megalosaurus was described, the first life restoration made for the new genus was a lot different than what any dinosaur looks like today. With a long snout and a bulky build, the earliest reconstruction for Megalosaurus had it depicted as a semi-aquatic, lizard-like quadrupedal reptile with its limbs held upright due to the fact that the limbs showed no signs of a sprawling posture like with traditional reptiles. The same reconstruction can still be seen in person today in the form of a statue at the Crystal Palace Park in London, alongside other early dinosaur depictions from the early 1800s. Over the next century, more fossils belonging to different kinds of theropods would significantly alter the depiction of Megalosaurus, going initially from a robust and bulky quadruped to a tall animal that stood upright on its hind limbs, similar to a kangaroo. As the dinosaur renaissance dawned with the description of Deinonychus, this posture too would change, giving Megalosaurus and other bipedal dinosaurs a horizontal stance, closer to birds than to other reptiles. This revelation would later help scientists realize that birds themselves are a type of dinosaur. Ever since its description, Megalosaurus remains have also been found elsewhere in Europe, such as France and Germany. However, a 2010 publication by paleontologist Roger B.J. Benson states that the remains from other European nations, especially France, should be considered unknown and could potentially belong to other megalosaurids, most remains of which are too fragmentary to establish a description. If this is true, this indicates that the different apex predators on these ancient European islands would have been restricted into specific regions. No complete skeleton has been found of this dinosaur as of yet, but various estimates have been made by numerous paleontologists over time. The length of the first reconstruction of Megalosaurus was said to have been 12 meters, 40 feet long, and 2.5 meters, 8 feet tall, weighing as much as an elephant according to Buckland in 1824. Although it was hard to make an accurate estimate of its actual size at the time, as its size bounced back from a minimum of 10 meters, 30 feet, to a maximum of 18.2 to 21.3 meters, 60 to 70 feet. Paleontologist David Bruce Norman estimated in a later 1984 publication that it would have had a length of 7 to 8 meters, 23 to 26 feet. Gregory S. Paul postulated that the weight of this reconstruction could have been 1.1 tons, that's 2,425 pounds. Its current size, published in 2010, was estimated by Gregory S. Paul again to be 6 meters, 20 feet in length, and up to 7 kilograms, 1,500 pounds. Megalosaurus is a genus of theropod dinosaur in the aptly named Megalosauridae clade. This clade currently includes 3 subcategories, those being Afrovenatoriinae, which includes Afrovenator, and its close relatives Eustriptospondylinae, which is limited to just the animal Eustriptospondylus, and Megalosaurinae, which is named after and includes the dinosaur Megalosaurus. Also included in this group is the famous dinosaur Torvosaurus. The clade Megalosauridae itself is actually included in a large subfamily named after Megalosaurus, known as Megalosauria or Megalosauridia. Megalosauria includes the animals previously mentioned, but also the clade Spinosauridae, famous for its large fish-eating members and the mighty Spinosaurus. Another and older family of theropods is also within this subfamily, known as the Pianitskysauridae, which includes theropods like Marsosaurus. Unlike the other two groups, Pianitskysaurids are currently under debate for whether they belong to Megalosauria or Allosauridia. Megalosauria first evolved in the Middle Jurassic 170 million years ago. This large superfamily was considered to be their own class of tetanuran theropods. That would later change in 2019, after the description of an allosauroid theropod named Asphaltovenator, which lived almost 10 million years before Megalosauroids evolved. Anatomical traits from the Asphaltovenator indicate that it may be related to both groups, therefore making Megalosauridia a part of the larger Carnosauria infraorder. However, other paleontologists disagree with the inclusion of Megalosauridia in this infraorder, so this topic currently remains under debate. Remains for Megalosaurus bucklandii have been discovered in Middle Jurassic rocks of England, with remains of M. bucklandii and unnamed species discovered in the Tainton Limestone Formation and the Sharps Hill Formation located in the Great Oolite Rock Group. The Corallian Rock Group also has reports of M. bucklandii and indeterminate species discovered in the Coralline Oolite Formation and the Stanford Formation. In addition, other potential Megalosaurus specimens of indeterminate or even informal species have also been discovered in the Marnes des Dives Formation in northernmost France. The Sundtil Formation in Germany and an unnamed formation in Poland also reports Megalosaurus remains. This potential distribution is due to the fact that in the Jurassic, all of Europe was once covered in a warm, shallow sea, creating a massive archipelago. However, the remains in England are currently the only official specimens that paleontologists are confident belong to Megalosaurus. The environment in England that Megalosaurus would have inhabited would have exhibited a plethora of flora, such as ferns, conifers, ginkgos, cycads, and other non-flowering plants. The animals that Megalosaurus is known to coexist with are mammals like Amphitherium, pterosaurs like the recently named Rhamphorhynchid Clobiodon, and crocs like Telosaurus, and the recently named Celdocinian. Depending on the size of the individual, Megalosaurus would have more than likely preyed on the animals listed. However, Telosaurus and Celdocinian would have turned the tables on younger individuals. The dinosaurs Megalosaurus likely preyed on were the theropods, Proceratosaurus, one of the earliest tyrannosauroids, the enigmatic Iliasuchus, early indeterminate dromaeosaurs, younger individuals of the sauropod Cetiosaurus, and younger individuals of the first ever sauropod to be described, Cardiodon. Aside from active hunting, Megalosaurus more than likely took the opportunity to travel to several other ancient islands in search of food, scavenging along the shorelines if food was scarce. The corpses that likely ended up beached on the ancient shoreline could have been early sea turtles, several fish like the coelacanth undina, leptidotes, a fossil fish, the Chimera ischotus, the hypodontid shark Egertonodus, and many other different types of fish. There's also a chance that it scavenged on other marine reptiles, such as beached pliosaurs, plesiosaurs, and ichthyosaurs. The only other large predator Megalosaurus likely competed with in England were other members of its species. Moving on from England to the other formations it's potentially known from, the Marnes des Dives Megalosaurus species in France would have actively preyed on stegosaurs and sauropods of indeterminate origin. As for scavenging, the French species would have eaten large fish if they ever got beached, such as the giant-sized Lesichthes and the giant coelacanth Trachymetapon. It would have also scavenged on the corpses of the marine crocodilians Metriorhynchus and the closely related Tyrannosaurus. However, if the French species ever traveled through the waters in this formation to other islands, it would have had to worry about these marine crocodilians upon swimming. As for competition, the French species competed against other megalosaurids such as Streptospondylus and Pivotosaurus, as well as the currently unnamed Metriacanthosaurid allosaur. The German species from the Suntil Formation, which is under debate as to whether or not it belongs to Megalosaurus itself or a different genus, would have had a high variety of prey. The German species most likely hunted early iguanodontids and other smaller ornithopods, as well as younger individuals of diplodocoid and brachiosaurid sauropods, as well as the Camarasauromorph sauropod, Imperpetuate. Other potential prey items were small mammals, crocs, and pterosaurs. Like other species, the German species scavenged on animals like Hibotus, plesiosaurs, and early sea turtles. Competition came in many different sizes as the German species competed with mostly other theropods that remain indeterminate as well, those being ceratosaurids, allosaurids, and other megalosaurids, with Torvosaurus being a potential candidate. Another predator it not only had to compete but worry about was the giant Machimosaurus, a large Thalattosuchian that swam in the rivers and oceans of the Suntil Formation. As for the Polish species, not much is known of what it preyed on or what it competed with other than likely its own kind, but this species likely scavenged off the sea like what has already been discussed previously. In conclusion, Megalosaurus in life would have been a huge opportunist, adapting and surviving on many different islands in Jurassic Europe, scavenging and actively preying on anything it could find in order to survive. Considering that Megalosaurus is one of the oldest dinosaur taxa to be described, it has appeared in a lot of media. We will attempt to list as many as we can here, but it is likely that we will still miss a few. With that out of the way, the first ever appearance for Megalosaurus in pop culture was in the 1852 novel Bleak House, written by Charles Dickens. Dickens describes the animal as the original restoration of Megalosaurus. It then appeared in the 1970 blockbuster When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth, where it was featured as a quadrupedal reptile rather than a theropod dinosaur, which was already inaccurate considering that the dinosaur renaissance began 11 years prior. Megalosaurus would also appear 7 years later in 1977's Planet of the Dinosaurs. Almost 2 decades after that, the famous 1991 family sitcom Dinosaurs features a Megalosaurus character named Earl Sinclair, who is the father in the show.
Sinclair! In here now! Good!
In the same year, a documentary called Dinosaur, hosted by Walter Cronkite, would feature yet another outdated reconstruction of Megalosaurus in a vertical stance, similar to theropod reconstructions seen before the 1960s. Then, after 3 decades of outdated designs, the 2007 anime Dinosaur King finally introduces Megalosaurus with an accurate horizontal stance. Megalosaurus would make yet another appearance in the 2009 PBS Kids show Dinosaur Train, introducing a character named Manny. Afterwards, Megalosaurus would then go on to appear in several documentaries in the past decade, starting with a brief cameo in the 2010 documentary film T-Rex: Journey to a Prehistoric World. Its best and most recent appearance would be in the 2015 2-part documentary series Dinosaur Britain. In the span of all that time, the only other movie it was featured in was the 2012 horror comedy film The Dinosaur Experiment. As for video games, it has made its appearance in Ark Survival Evolved, Jurassic World the Game, Jurassic World Evolution 2, and Jurassic World Alive. It was also featured in Fossil Fighters and its sequel game Fossil Fighters Champions as the Vivosaur known as Megalo. It was also initially featured in the dinosaur survival game Beast of Bermuda before being replaced with another megalosaurid, a dinosaur known as Wahanvinator. The outdated Waterhouse-Hawkins reconstruction of Megalosaurus also appears in the mobile game Dino Hunter Deadly Shores. Its most recent appearance, however, is in the 2023 game Paleopines. Fossils of Megalosaurus are known from the Bathonian stage of the Middle Jurassic of what is now the UK. However, some fossils indicate it may have lived as early as the Bohocian stage, 176 million years ago. And, while most material for Megalosaurus stops when the Bathonian ends, some fossil evidence may support a continual existence into the Oxfordian to Camararidgian stages in the late Jurassic, potentially giving Megalosaurus a range of 19 million years, existing mostly in the Middle Jurassic with possible evidence of its continual existence in the late Jurassic. However, despite potentially living for an impressively long 14 million years, the mighty Megalosaurus did eventually go extinct. But why? What caused this animal to die out? Well, scientists aren't exactly sure what caused this animal to pass into the annals of prehistory, but many think some form of climate change may have been the culprit. A combination of faunal turnovers and rising and receding sea levels would have made survival for predators like Megalosaurus harsh. Additionally, competition from new predators such as Allosaurus and Ceratosaurus making their way to the islands Megalosaurus inhabited could have provided increased pressure from competition that it previously wouldn't have had to contend with, could have even pushed it into extinction as well. While Megalosaurus went extinct, its group did live on into the late Jurassic with a potential early Cretaceous record from South America based on isolated teeth, showing that the group likely went extinct by this time. As for Megalosaurus itself, while the species has been lost forever to the sands of time, the legacy it left would be one of the most remarkable in human history. For its story would be uncovered once more by a naturalist who would publish his findings on this great dinosaur fossil, and its classification would pave the way to an awe-inspiring field of science that would herald the discoveries of many animals that were lost to time. Who would have thought that 200 years of discovery could open up an entire world that would change our lives, our knowledge, and our world forever? Paleontology has left an inspiring impression to all of us. Imagining how these majestic animals walked, breathed, and lived is enough for us as humans to gather our equipment and start digging for more. The stories they tell open the visions of this forgotten prehistoric world, which fills us with emotion and amazement. It's hard to think what many of London's citizens were imagining during 1824, when this animal was first revealed to them. One thing is for certain, however: William Buckland and all of the pioneering scientists of the time opened up the world of dinosaurs to us. And it started with a mighty giant. A giant that was Megalosaurus, the first terrible lizard. Thank you all for watching today's 200-year anniversary special for the one and only Megalosaurus. As mentioned in the discovery section in this video, exactly 200 years ago on this day, the dinosaur Megalosaurus first appeared in a publication by William Buckland in February 20th, 1824. It has been 200, and we hope you enjoyed this anniversary video for this magnificent creature as much as we did. This video was directed by the Primal Earth, narrated by myself, TheDinosaurHunter, edited by TheDinosaurHunter, LegitEliminator, the Primal Earth, RangoGamer, SpinoDragon, Mike MC9797, and the Imperpetuate Sabertooth, scripted by the Primal Earth, SpinoDragon, and the Imperpetuate Sabertooth. The graphic designers in this video were TheDinosaurHunter, SpinoDragon, Mephilas Seijin101, and the Imperpetuate Sabertooth. And finally, the researchers in this video were SpinoDragon and the Imperpetuate Sabertooth. The sources to the media used in the making will be linked into the description of this video. And once again, thank you all very much for watching, and we will see you all next time on Epoch Now.